Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan, Status Coup. Hope you're having a lovely day. We are very busy, very busy today. I thought I was going to do a completely different show, and then right when I came on air, more breaking news, So, starting with more breaking news on the espionage thriller that is Donald Trump and the Mar-a-Lago raid. I'm going to wait for more people to trickle in, so I don't have to start all anew when we get more people. Let me tell him. Text to smash that like button, share this live stream. Thumbs up button right under the live stream. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. Quite the weekend as I'm waiting for more people to come in. I drove yesterday 11 hours. 11 hours I drove yesterday. So I'm a little tired. Might have to take off a day during the week. But I drove 11 hours, went up to Massachusetts to see some family. And then I drove back, and it was insane traffic there and back. So that was fun. But smash that like button, share this live stream so we can get it out to more people. I got to tell you, I started my career. Yes, the shirt, Flint Lives Matter. If you didn't see, there is more news with Flint that I'm going to get to later this week. I started my career in 2015, 2016, as far as being on the road, covering politics on air. And I did something different. I did not cover Trump 24/7 because I felt, what can I really add that's not being covered 24/7? But what's going on right now in this country, and what's going on and possibly being investigated with our former president, you can't ignore this. I have to cover this. We're going to continue covering it. I'm going to do it the way I do things and cover it the way I think it should be covered. But we're gonna stay on this because, frankly, it's looking a lot worse. It's looking a lot worse for former President Trump. And we do live in the United Corporations of America, so I'm not going to hold my breath that a powerful and corrupt person might be held accountable, might see a prison cell, but you never know. You never know. So smash that like button, share this live stream. Super chats are welcome. So I had a different show planned, and then right when I was going to go on air, it came down that the Department of Justice has objected to the affidavit. So the search warrant was released on Friday, but the Department of Justice has objected to the search warrant affidavit, which is the full. If the search warrant is kind of like the top line of what they're investigating and materials they were looking for, the affidavit for the search warrant would be kind of the whole ball game. What is their evidence that they've collected that crimes might have been committed? What is driving the investigation? Basically, what do they have would be in the affidavit. And the Department of Justice has objected, I believe, within the last hour to a court to keep that affidavit sealed so that it would not be released to the public. Let me read some of that affidavit because they say it could irreparably harm unsealing the search warrant affidavit, which, again, the search warrant affidavit would really show what exactly was the basis for the Mar-a-Lago raid, what evidence they have for Trump potentially committing crimes. It would be the whole ball game. Let me read some of that affidavit, and a reminder, please smash that like button, share this live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people will see this live stream. We got some other great topics too, including MSNBC slobbering over Joe Biden and his terrible record. But we got to start with this. Colin, if you could pull up the affidavit. This was in court today. United States District Court of Southern Florida. On August 8th, 2022, the Department of Justice executed a search warrant at the premises located at 1100 South Ocean Boulevard, property of former President Trump. Given the circumstances presented in this matter and the public interest in transparency, and in the wake of the former president's public confirmation of the search and his representative's public characterizations of the materials sought, the government moved to unseal the search warrant, its attachments, and the property receipt summarizing materials seized, which motion this court granted. Those docketed items, which had already been provided to the former president's counsel upon execution of the warrant, have now appropriately been made public. The affidavit supporting the search warrant presents a very different set of considerations. There remains compelling reasons, including to protect the integrity of an ongoing law enforcement investigation that implicates national security, that support keeping the affidavit sealed. So there they are, acknowledging that there's an ongoing investigation into Trump, and they claim that it has national security implications. The government does not object to unsealing other materials filed in connection with the search warrant, whose unsealing would not jeopardize the integrity of this national security investigation, subject to minor redactions to protect government personnel, namely cover sheets associated with the search warrant application, docket entry, the government's motion to seal, and the court sealing order. The government's proposed redactions to those documents have been filed under seal as DE-57, and the government now asks the court to unseal the materials contained in that filing. So they are asking for other materials to be unsealed, but they are asking for the actual search warrant affidavit, the search warrant affidavit to be unsealed. And just a quick side tour. Paulie, I wish you got notifications when I go live too. But guess what, Paulie? You can get a notification when we go live. Sign up for StatusCoup.com/text. StatusCoup.com/text. Since YouTube doesn't like to notify anyone when we're live, or half the people, half the time, we are building a text list so we can send you a text message when we're live. It's free for you. Go to StatusCoup.com/text. Sign up. You'll get a text message when we're live. We don't send texts for any other reason. When I go to the bathroom, when I'm sad, when I'm happy, only let you know when we're live. So there you go, Paulie. Sorry, let's get back to it. And keep those super chats coming. We'll read them at the end. By the way, we're going to be taking live calls through the call-in app right on our YouTube channel a little bit later. So get ready for that. We will have your calls on this and other topics too. Let's go to the more of this, Colin, the procedural background part. In recent days, following the execution of the search warrant, several news media organizations and other entities asked this court to unseal the search warrant and related documents, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go down, Colin. So let's get to the argument part. This is why they don't want the actual affidavit for the search warrant, which again is the longer, way more comprehensive document that would actually list the evidence that they have for potential crimes that Trump might have committed, and the basis of their, having to basically raid Mar-a-Lago. To be clear, the search warrant only listed the potential crimes they were investigating. It did not list what the evidence they have is. All right. Their argument: disclosure of the search warrant affidavit would irreparably harm the government's ongoing criminal investigation. The press and the public enjoy a qualified right of access to judicial proceedings and the judicial records filed therein. The unsealing of judicial materials pursuant to the common law right of access, quote, requires a balancing of competing interests. Quote, in balancing the public interest in accessing court documents against the party's interest in keeping the information confidential, courts consider, among other factors, whether allowing access would impair court functions or harm legitimate privacy interests, the degree of and likelihood of injury if made public, the reliability of the information, whether there will be an opportunity to respond to the information, whether the information concerns public officials or public concerns, and the availability of a less onerous alternative to sealing the documents. In the 11th Circuit, potential prejudice to an ongoing criminal investigation represents a compelling government interest that justifies the closure of judicial records. Bennett versus United States. Proceedings were made public. Many protective witnesses would be hesitant to come forward voluntarily, knowing that those against whom they testify would be aware of that testimony. And there would also be risk that those about to be indicted would flee or would try to influence individual grand jurors. So I'm going to go down a little more because this is just reading, kind of some previous cases and precedent. Courts have also denied requests to partially unseal redacted versions of investigative materials, where doing so would fail to protect the integrity of law enforcement investigations. Valentini said, release of redacted version of transcripts from closed proceedings, quote, would have been inadequate to protect the government's interest in the ongoing investigation. So I want to get to the part here. The government has a compelling overridden interest in preserving the integrity of an ongoing criminal investigation. Let me repeat. Here, the government has a compelling overriding interest in preserving the integrity of an ongoing criminal investigation. So this is federal prosecutors within the Department of Justice. I mean, obviously, they released the search warrant, so we know it's a criminal investigation. But here is them saying ongoing criminal investigation into Trump. As the government has readily acknowledged, the circumstances here involving a search of the premises for a former president involve matters of significant public concern. As a result, in an effort to ensure public access to materials that no longer needed to be sealed to protect the investigation, the government sought to unseal the search warrant, its attachments describing the premises to be searched and the property to be seized, and the property receipt provided to the former president's counsel upon execution of the search. The court granted that motion with the consent of former President Trump, who had previously received these materials, and the materials have now been made public. From these disclosures, the public is now aware of, among other things, the potential criminal statutes at issue in this investigation. Colin, can we just detour here, if people didn't see it on Friday, to the tweets, one of the tweets in the live stream doc towards the top is the criminal statutes that they're investigating. So you have, let me know when you have it. It's from Hugo. There we go. 18 USC 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation. 18 USC 793, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. 18 USC 1519, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations. That one is the Espionage Act. The Espionage Act has been abused throughout American history. Julian Assange is currently wrongly rotting in a prison in Belfast in the UK based on an supposed espionage violation, which is complete bullshit. So I'm not really a fan of the Espionage Act, which has been abused throughout history. However, I do have reason to think that they would not raid Trump unless they actually had evidence that he might have actually violated the Espionage Act, contrary to, Fox News's meltdown and hysteria. But let's keep going on the affidavit. The court granted that motion with the consent of former President Trump, who had previously received these materials, and the materials have now been made public. From these disclosures, the public is now aware of, among other things, the potential criminal statutes at issue in this investigation. Materials, quote, constituting evidence, contraband, fruits of crime, or other items illegally possessed in violation of 18 USC, blah, blah, blah. And the general nature of the items seized, including documents marked as classified. The government determined that these materials could be released without significant harm to its investigation because the search had already been executed and publicly acknowledged by the former president, and because the materials had previously been provided to the former president through counsel. Disclosure at this juncture of the affidavit supporting probable cause. Again, what that means, the affidavit supporting probable cause, is the actual evidence they showed to a judge, evidence that Trump had committed crimes. That's what that means. So forget the fancy word affidavit and all that. Probable cause for the affidavit means the evidence. Disclosure at this juncture of the affidavit supporting probable cause would, by contrast, cause significant and irreparable damage to this ongoing criminal investigation. As the court is aware from its review of the affidavit, it contains, among other critically important and detailed investigative facts, highly sensitive information about witnesses, including witnesses interviewed by the government, specific investigative techniques, and information required by law to be kept under seal pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure. To me, what that means in English, this affidavit has our source, has our informant or multiple informants that tipped off the FBI or Department of Justice to whatever the hell Trump had lying under his, desk at Mar-a-Lago. So in that affidavit is information on the witnesses, the informant who tipped off the FBI. That informant could be a lawyer for Trump. That informant could be a member of the Secret Service. Hell, who knows? Maybe it's Jared Kushner. Just speculating, of course. Let's keep going. In addition, information about witnesses is particularly sensitive given the high-profile nature of this matter and the risk that the revelation of witness identities would impact their willingness to cooperate with the investigation. Disclosures of the government's affidavit at this stage would also likely chill future cooperation by witnesses whose assistance may be sought as this investigation progresses, as well as in other high-profile investigations. The fact that this investigation implicates highly classified materials further underscores the need to protect integrity of the investigation and exacerbates the potential for harm if information is disclosed to the public prematurely or improperly. So that's basically the gist. I'll put the link to this affidavit if you want to read it in the super chat. There you go. We got almost 400 people watching, so please smash that like button. 400 people watching, but only 200 likes. So I need every single person to smash that like button. And don't you worry, we're going to be covering Mr. Biden too, and MSNBC's pathetic, nauseating. I hope you're not on a full stomach or empty stomach. Nauseating. I've seen some MSNBC slobbering over Hillary Clinton, Obama, Biden. This morning, this segment from Morning Joe really made me almost throw up. So stay tuned for that, because we're not doing Trump 24/7, but this is important. We got to cover this about Trump. And for those leftists who ignore it or run cover for him, yeah, I got nothing to say about those people. And keep those super chats coming. I see them. I'm going to read them at the end. Reminder, we're going to be taking your phone calls in a little bit through the call-in app. So if you haven't downloaded the call-in app yet, that's how we take your calls on the YouTube show. So download call-in, CALLIN. That's CALLIN. And search for Status Coup. And then we're going to go live on call-in while we're live on YouTube, and we could take your calls on call-in. I drove 11 hours yesterday to see back and forth to see family in Massachusetts. I'm very tired, and I don't have a lot of capacity for, cranks today. So if you're going to call in, be nice. And if you disagree, that's fine, but be nice, because I have a short fuse today. Now, Colin, this just broke when we were coming on air, that the DOJ is contesting this. I just sent you, if you got the text. I want to say, this is from Neil Katyal. He's a former Supreme Court lawyer, about the DOJ contesting the release of this affidavit. If you have that, Colin. DOJ is appropriately resisting disclosure of the Mar-a-Lago search affidavit because it will compromise their ongoing investigation. This is very standard and right. That said, what they said, especially about witnesses, will invariably drive Trump to be even more worried. Let me tell you something. I can't turn on Fox News while I'm live with you. Fox News, the right wing, Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, Alex Jones, all of them. Their head is going to explode. What's in the affidavit? Give us the affidavit. It's the deep state. It's the deep state. Covering the affidavit. Give us the affidavit. Unseal the affidavit. They're going to merge in Benghazi and Hillary's emails and Hunter Biden and all this other shit. By the way, I think Hunter Biden should be indicted. Hillary Clinton should have been indicted. So if you're a neoliberal watching, I call it both ways. Hillary Clinton should have been indicted. If I had a private server with classified materials I was emailing, I'd be in fucking prison. And Hunter Biden making $50,000 a month on a Ukrainian oil company's board to do what exactly? Yeah, he should be indicted too. Anyway, but they're going to go out of their mind. I'm not a lawyer, but I've covered with the Flint water crisis, i.e. my shirt. It is pretty standard that they wouldn't release a affidavit for a search warrant during an ongoing investigation, because that would reveal witnesses, sources, those kind of things. And you're not going to do that because if you've ever watched a good espionage thriller, the criminals try to get to the witnesses and try to get them to recant or try to threaten them, their families, so they won't go, so they won't testify. I mean, you could even watch a standard Sopranos episode for that. So I want to get to the weekend as the Trump turned this weekend. So Colin, this is the first Trump tweet in the live stream, Doc. I shouldn't say tweet because it's from Truth Social. Donald Trump, let me know when you have it. This is the one. Nuclear weapons issue is a hoax, just like Russia. So Trump on Truth Social. Nuclear weapons issue is a hoax, just like Russia. Russia was a hoax. 2 impeachments were a hoax. The Mueller investigation was a hoax, and much more. Same sleazy people involved. Why wouldn't the FBI allow the inspection of areas at Mar-a-Lago with our lawyers or others present? Made them wait outside in the heat. Wouldn't let them get even close. Said absolutely not. Planting information, anyone? Reminds me of a Christopher Steele dossier. So keep this up, by the way. Keep this up, Colin. With this, Trump is doing something that is kind of smart. He's sprinkling in some true things while putting out other fact-free, without evidence conspiracies. So I said from day one, I mean, there is no evidence that there was collusion with Russia. To me, that was a fantasy conjured up by Hillary Clinton's campaign to explain and defend why she lost to an orange orangutan when she should have crushed him. She ran a terrible campaign. She had no economic policy. The fact, Trump had the Midwestern voters at NAFTA. How do I know? I covered it on the road. So Trump is right. There was no evidence of Russian collusion. I could have told you Trump's campaign couldn't even start a rally on time, much less collude with a foreign government. However, there was evidence that Trump tried to obstruct Robert Mueller's investigation, but because of a ridiculous, DOJ standard that you can't indict a sitting president, I don't know why they even did the investigation if you couldn't indict him. So there was no evidence of collusion with Russia. I always said you're investigating the wrong thing. You don't have to investigate whether Trump and his campaign colluded with Russia. You should be investigating Trump's 20 years of money laundering, tax fraud, much of which had links to Russia and Saudi Arabia. If you grew up in New York, I mean, it was an open secret that Trump was involved with the mafia. New York real estate went hand in hand with the mafia. It was known that Trump committed money laundering crimes. It was known that Trump had some shady business with Russian oligarchs, but that's not colluding with Russia. So put that back up. So he sprinkles in a little truth about the Russia hoax, because Russiagate was bullshit. I said it I've been consistent. I said it when I was at the Young Turks. It's ushered in a completely devastating new era of McCarthyism and the Cold War. That doesn't mean we should defend that Russia invaded Ukraine. There is no defense for that. Russia has been committing, in my view, war crimes on the Ukrainian people. When you hear so-called leftists sitting there, slobbering over Putin's asshole, it's pathetic. Pathetic. They're not leftists. They're fucking grifters. But I digress. So Trump says nuclear weapons issue was a hoax, just like Russia. Russia was a hoax. 2 impeachments were, everything's a hoax. But here he's saying that planting evidence, anyone, reminds me of the Christopher Steele dossier. So what he's doing is smart, because having covered 2 Trump campaigns in 2016 and 2020, I'm not calling all Trump supporters bad people. There's a lot of good people that support Trump, including my father, who I love, who's very, very misinformed. But they buy this shit hook, line, and sinker. This is what repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie is. This is what Fox News is. This is what Breitbart is. This is what Rush Limbaugh for 30 years was. I mean, it's all repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie, let it sizzle in the brains of these right-wingers. And that's it. Fact doesn't matter. The sky is green. Down is up, up is down. There's no evidence of evidence planted, but that's what Trump is going to sprinkle in. But then let's go to the next one. This is Trump believed yesterday. Oh, great. It has just been learned that the FBI, in its now famous raid of Mar-a-Lago, took boxes of privileged attorney-client material and also executive privileged material, which they knowingly should not have taken. By copy of this truth, I respectfully request that these documents be immediately returned to the location from which they were taken. Thank you. Again, just toss shit out, throw gum at a wall, see what sticks. Zero evidence the FBI seized attorney-client privilege documents. Zero evidence the FBI planted evidence on Trump. That doesn't mean the FBI is, an agency of angels. That doesn't mean they haven't planted evidence on fucking black people, brown people, indigenous people, poor white people since the beginning of time. Let's not get it twisted that the FBI is some bastion of freedom and, integrity. No, it's a rogue agency. I'm all for the FBI being abolished, but let me tell you something. On the long list of FBI crimes and FBI sins, raiding Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago is very low on the list to me. Because again, I firmly believe, and you could call me naive, I find it extremely hard to believe, particularly in this country, which is at a powder keg. And there's now, we're going to get into it in a bit, the increasing threats of a civil war. A Pennsylvania man was just arrested for threatening the FBI. We're going to get to that. I have a very, very hard time to believe the Department of Justice, the FBI, a judge would have signed off on raiding a former president's home if there wasn't evidence there that they did not need to plant. And if they didn't have ironclad informants, i.e. witnesses, that already showed them where it was, either through video, photos, et cetera, et cetera. So let's continue. Trump's saying that he's saying they planted evidence, and now he's saying that they stole basically attorney-client privilege. Has no evidence of that. Let's move on. This is from today. Wow. In the raid by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago, they stole my 3 passports, 1 expired, along with everything else. This is an assault on a political opponent at a level never seen before in our country. Third world. So the former president of the United States apparently has 3 passports, and he's saying that they took his passports, although his passports were not on the list of documents seized. I don't know if they took his passports. If they believe that he committed crimes, obviously he's got properties all over the world. I would think he's a flight risk. If they believe he committed crimes, why wouldn't you take his passport? I don't know if they did or not, but Trump seems to be just tossing out as many things at the wall as he can. They're planting evidence. They stole attorney-client privilege. They took my passports. Next, they're going to say they took my hamburger, because Trump infamously liked to eat cheeseburgers in bed at the White House. I mean, it's getting bad. But what's amazing to me, if you could bring up the Fox News article, Colin, as Trump is revving up his base, this is unprecedented. We're third world. They're planting evidence. They're stealing my communications with my lawyers. They're stealing my passports. At the same time, this is the Fox News article. Trump will do whatever he can to help the country, Colin. At the same time, he's saying we need to bring the temperature down. Temperature has to be brought down. The temperature that he is stoking and his right-wing sycophants are stoking. I mean, you can't make this up. And smash that like button. We got 620 people watching, but only 350 likes. If I could get every single person to press that like button, I think we could get closer to 800 to 900. viewers, which would be awesome. And if you're new to this channel, press subscribe. If you're new to this channel, press subscribe. All right. So, and we will read super chats in a bit. So, this Fox News story. Former President Trump said he will do whatever he can to help the country after the FBI's raid of his Mar-a-Lago home last week, telling Fox News Digital that, quote, the temperature has to be brought down, while stressing that the American people are not going to stand for another scam. Yeah, let's bring down the temperature, but this is all a scam. In an exclusive interview with Fox News on Monday, his first since the raid, Trump said he has had his representatives reach out to the Justice Department to offer to help amid outrage over the FBI's unprecedented raid on his private residence last week, in which agents seized classified records, including some marked as top secret. Trump is disputing the classification of those records, saying the records have been declassified under this new theory by Donald Trump that you could just wave a wand and retroactively declassify things 18 months after you left the White House. Can you fucking imagine? And I'm not a fan of President Obama, but can you imagine if President Obama took something like, I don't know, nuclear weapons program? Fuck, if Obama took a toothbrush from the White House. Could you imagine him later saying, well, I declassified it? Oh my God, they'd be calling for forget impeachment hearings. They'd be calling for the criminal conviction right away over at Fox News. Trump said, quote, the country is in a very dangerous position. There is tremendous anger that he is stoking, like I've never seen before, over all of the scams and this new one, years of scams and witch hunts. And now this, Trump said. If there's anything we could do to help, and my people would certainly be willing to do that, Trump said. Quote, there has never been a time like this where law enforcement has been used to break into the house of a former president of the U.S., and there is tremendous anger in the country at a level that has never been seen before, other than during very perilous times. Trump told Fox News that his team, quote, has not heard yet from the Justice Department on whether they will accept his offer for help. Quote, I think they would want the same thing. I've never seen anything like this, Trump said. It is a very dangerous time for our country. So let me decode this for you, because I think I know what's going on here. Trump is basically, I think his lawyers are telling him, you got to tone shit down. I think his lawyers are saying, we need to make it look like we are operating in good faith. I think his lawyers are saying we need to issue an olive branch saying we want to help the Department of Justice in its investigation. We want to work with the Department of Justice and the FBI. I think his lawyers know, not his real lawyers, not Rudy Giuliani, who, by the way, I think, was it the DOJ or the FBI just said that he's the target of an investigation today. But I think his lawyers basically see the whole I retroactively declassified shit ain't going to work. The problem is, I think Trump might be nodding, all right. And then 45 minutes later, when he sees something on Fox News or whatever, then he flies off the handle and tweets some new fucking conspiracy on Truth Social. Like they're planting evidence, or they stole attorney-client privilege, or I saw a Bigfoot with the FBI, or, what did he just say? What was the last one? Hold on. That they stole his passports. So I feel like there's kind of the good devil on one side and the bad devil on one side. The good devil is like his lawyers being like, you need to fucking shut your mouth. We need to signal that we're going to work in good faith with the DOJ, with the FBI. And then bad devil is like, Trump, oh, they're planting evidence. Oh, Russia. Oh, they're stealing my passports. Oh, they jacked my attorney-client privilege. Oh, next they're going to say they improperly went in Melania's room and sniffed her underwear, which I haven't done in 30 years. It's just out of control. Out of control. And by the way, to be clear, because some leftists have made it seem like if you actually think it's a good thing that the FBI went in and seized these documents, if you think it's a good thing that they are holding Trump accountable, that you're somehow like cheerleading for the FBI. This is called straw man. This is called whataboutism. This is called distract and deflect, as I'm a leftist actually giving cover for Donald Trump. I don't fucking care if the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts went in there. I don't care if the Mossad went in there. I don't care if MI6 went in there. I don't care what reprehensible agency went in there. The bottom line is, to be clear, the bottom line is Donald Trump was asked by the National Archives for over a year to return these classified documents. He didn't do it. Then he was issued a subpoena. Which is the least aggressive method. Sorry, if I have a little lisp, it's because I bit my tongue before I went live. Is the least aggressive method legally. It's private. Nobody knew that he was issued a subpoena. His lawyers certified that he had returned everything. By the way, the fact that his lawyers certified that everything had been returned tells you two things. It's very likely that Trump lied to his lawyers and did not disclose everything he had, because a lawyer could go to jail, could go to prison for lying to the FBI. Well, anybody really can go to prison for lying to the FBI, unless you're most wealthy white people. But a lawyer can go to prison for lying to the FBI. So if a lawyer certified that Trump had already returned every piece of classified material that was requested, it's very likely that the lawyer was lied to by Trump. Things were hidden by Trump. And that very likely could indicate that a lawyer is the source for the FBI, because the lawyer who certified that he had returned everything, that a lawyer who certified he returned everything was on the hook because he didn't return everything. That's what I think is going on here. But it is really rich that Trump, after stoking up his base, calling this tyranny, calling this the end of the republic, et cetera, is now saying we need to cool down the temperature after one of his supporters went shooting at an FBI office in Cincinnati. The FBI issued a bulletin today, which we're going to get to next, about the increased threats of a civil war. So it's really rich that Trump is now talking about we need to cool the temperature, which he's doing nothing to actually do. All right. So let's play this clip, Colin, because there's Republicans now parroting his baseless conspiracies about evidence being planted. Let's play the one parroting the latest GOP conspiracy, Congresswoman Jody Hice.
In this case, former president of the United States, if they can do this to him, they can do this to anyone. And one of the big questions I have is why, allegedly, were his attorneys not allowed to witness this? I mean, who is to say in this kind of case that some of the documents supposedly seized were not planted there to begin with? This whole thing has been done improperly.
So again, I'm not a legal expert, but I can tell you, because I've covered other stories like this, when the FBI raids your home, they don't say, hey, before you take anything or, toss the table over, stop everything you're doing, agents. We need to give the attorneys a front row seat. That's not how that works. And by the way, the DOJ and the FBI gave Trump a CCTV connection so that him and his family could watch the whole thing. So Trump was able to watch the whole thing. His family was able to watch the whole thing. So this whole, they didn't let his lawyers in to watch, bullshit. Lawyers don't get a front row seat during an FBI raid. It's ridiculous. Let's play the next one. This is former Trump acting attorney, Matthew Whitaker.
Every single American needs to be looking at this point, unfortunately, over their shoulder, because the federal government is coming for them. Every single little thing that you might have done, unfortunately, we're now at the place where it was said in the past, you show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That seems to be the American we live in right now.
That's not the right one, Colin.
The team wasn't equipped. FBI agents can't tell the difference between attorney-client privilege and anything else they're looking for. Obviously, they need to set up a taint team. They need somebody to look at this before the investigation gets it. Because if you think about what could be in those documents, it could be legal strategies relating to his January 6th potential defense. It could be defenses related to this, and quite frankly, all of the other litigation and investigations going on. I mean, Donald.
Do you think any of these people would be saying this if the FBI raided Hunter Biden's home? And by the way, I'm all for the FBI raiding Hunter Biden's home. So I'm an equal opportunity person here. I think it's very clear Hunter Biden committed crimes. I think it's very clear, frankly, that Joe Biden kind of gave a wink and a nod as his son committed crimes using Joe Biden's name. I don't know if there's direct evidence, but you know, there could be evidence that Joe Biden personally benefited from Hunter Biden's crimes. I'm not going to put out stuff there that I don't know for fact, but Hunter Biden definitely committed crimes. If he wasn't the president's son, he would have been indicted like 3 years ago. The amount of shit he did. They're all corrupt. Democrats, Republicans, Jared Kushner and his $2 billion deal with Saudi Arabia. So you got to take off your team, your team blue, your team red. They're all corrupt. And we got to call out all of them. But the reality is, if Hunter Biden's home was raided, do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene would be calling to abolish the FBI? Do you think any of these fucking Republicans would be on television claiming that they might have planted things on Hunter Biden? Do you think any of these people would be on there calling it the end of the republic and tyranny? Oh, please. They'd be lauding the FBI, giving us reminders of the good old days of J. Edgar Hoover surveilling Martin Luther King and sending him letters to kill himself. So they're all full of shit. All of them full of shit. I also want to show, hold on. Well, I'll show that later, actually. I'll show that later. So I want to move on. Justice Department subpoenas former Trump White House lawyer Eric Hirschman. This came today. Very interesting. Very interesting. Remember, I said possible that the source at Mar-a-Lago that tipped off the FBI and DOJ is one of Trump's lawyer. Here you have the Justice Department subpoenas former Trump White House lawyer Eric Hirschman. He's the latest one-time aide to the former president to receive a summons from a federal grand jury investigating the January 6th attack. A federal grand jury investigating the January 6th attack has subpoenaed Trump White House lawyer Eric Hirschman for documents and testimony, according to a person familiar with the matter. Hirschman represented Donald Trump in the former president's first impeachment trial and later joined the White House as a senior advisor. He did not work in the White House counsel's office, but did provide Trump with legal advice. Because of that responsibility, there will likely be litigation over the scope of the subpoena and over how executive and attorney-client privileges may limit Hirschman's ability to comply. I read this to you. I don't, again, we don't know. And Trump will say innocent until proven guilty. I'll give him that. But we don't know. We don't know if what they got from Trump and why it was such an urgent emergency to raid the former president had to do with January 6th. We don't know. We don't know if it had to do with nuclear programs and documents pertaining to nuclear programs down there. We don't know. We don't know if it had to do with investigations into Trump's real estate dealings and 40-year history between him and his dad, Fred Trump, money laundering, tax fraud. Who knows? I mean, this is a man that literally there's like 5 or 6 investigations going on at once between 4 or 5 agencies. You got the Southern District of New York investigating him. You have the Attorney General of New York is investigating him. You have Georgia prosecutors are investigating him because he's on tape. Give me 11,000 more votes. He's on tape in Georgia trying to rig the election and get over 11,000 fake votes. You think if Obama was on tape, they'd sit there and defend him? Obviously we now know about this investigation. The Trump charity is under investigation. There's like 5 or 6 parallel investigations going on. So I want to move on. And again, keep those super chats coming. We're going to read them at the end. I got 2 more stories to do, and then we're going to take your calls. we have to get to MSNBC slobbering over Joe Biden. So wait for that. I want to get to, because I think it's important. I think it's important to note that all of this right-wing hysteria has real world consequences. It's called violence. It's called white supremacist attacks. It's called violent conspiracy attacks. I saw it on the road. I saw the fervor at these Trump rallies that I covered. I saw white supremacist groups, Proud Boy members, Oath Keeper members, 3%er members. They were at Trump rallies. They weren't at Bernie rallies, I can tell you that. They certainly weren't at Biden rallies. I want to play a few clips and kind of tee up just the right-wing hysteria going on in this country. Let's start with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Colin. This is from yesterday or today. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a fascist, by the way, she's straight up fascist. She proudly calls herself a Christian nationalist. She says the FBI is, quote unquote, coming after her. Take a look.
Here's what we have to do. We have to be patient. Number one, be patient. Number two, set your expectations for it to get worse. Today, we just found out that Congressman Scott Perry, one of my very close allies and friends from Pennsylvania, the FBI took his cell phone.
Gosh, I haven't heard that yet.
Absolutely. He's been a top target by the January 6th committee. They confiscated his cell phone. So they're probably coming after me. They're probably coming after many people. But the real truth is, and President Trump has told this over and over again, they're really coming after the American people.
That's right.
And that is what's happening. But this is where we have to hold firm to our faith and to the country that we know and love, and to our families. And we cannot fear. And if you're a Christian, God tells you He does not give you a spirit of fear. He gives you a spirit of strength and courage, because God has a plan. And I fully believe that. I have no fear over what is happening. I know that God will use all of it for good. But I also know this, and I say this with all of my heart, and I'm going to keep saying it. We're going to defeat our enemies. We are going to defeat them, and we're going to hold them accountable and make them.
All right. You lost me at the Christian mumbo jumbo. I can't listen to that. But you hear the code words. They're coming after us. They're coming after us. Under attack. This is signals that they're sending to lunatics. And they know they're sending signals to lunatics. So that's just one. The FBI is coming after Marjorie Taylor Greene. Please. Please. She thinks she's very important. Now let's look at current Congressman Scott Perry, who apparently the FBI, I think it was the FBI, took his cell phone related to January 6th because they had evidence that he had calls with President Trump either before January 6th or on that day. Let's hear what he had to say.
Every single American needs to be looking at this point, unfortunately, over their shoulder, because the federal government is coming for them. Every single little thing that you might have done, unfortunately, we're now at the place where it was said in the past, you show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That seems to be the American we live in right now.
Got to look over your shoulder. They're coming after us. You got to look over your shoulder. Who is this message to? Sure, the Fox News viewer, but I'll tell you, a lot of people watching Fox News. There's a lot of people watching Newsmax and some of these other right-wing sewers that are on 4chan, that are on the Donald, which is a popular Donald Trump blog, that are on Gab, which is another right-wing Looney Tunes chat room. And they're watching this stuff. They're hearing they're coming after us. They were hearing, look over your shoulder. What do you think that's going to make them do? What do you think that makes unstable, racist, in many cases anti-Semitic people do? Let's go to Steve Bannon next.
I don't think I have one for Steve Bannon.
Yeah, it's in the live doc. It's right under Scott Perry tweet. I'll send it to you. Keep smashing the like button while we get that ready for you. Share this live stream. I will read the super chats at the end. We got six.
Says that tweet has been deleted.
Oh, Bannon deleted the tweet? Okay. All right. That's okay. Let's go to Matt Gaetz. This IRS they're hyperventilating about the IRS. Go ahead.
Chaos at the IRS, where they are gearing up for something. Is the IRS gearing up for war in our country? Is Nancy Pelosi trying to start a nuclear war in Asia? Is there an effort by the national security state to stoke violence in a civil war here at home? We certainly hope not.
The IRS, are they gearing up for war? God forbid more funding for the IRS, who has been literally chronically underfunded for ever and ever and ever. It's outrageous to give more funding to the IRS. That means they're coming with guns to your front door. They're coming with Antifa, the IRS. Let's go now to Charlie Kirk, another right-wing provocateur.
That wasn't a raid against Trump. That was a raid against your values. That was a raid against you. That is a presidential landmark where treaties were signed, deals were negotiated. That's a desecration of the conservative movement. And they say, well, we're a very non-political branch of law enforcement is what we are. They are the shock troops of the Democrat Party is what they have become. But understand.
The shock troops of the Democratic Party. Let me repeat. The shock troops of the Democratic Party. Let me tell you who the shock troops of the Democratic Party are, okay? The shock troops of the Democratic Party are Wall Street, the fossil fuckers, Big Pharma, Big Real Estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex, and name your other scumbag special interest that has bought off the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, by the way. They're both bought off. That's why I say we live in the United Corporations of America. Those are the shock troops of the Democratic Party that they are on the front lines with. That's what the Inflation Reduction Act was about. Defending Wall Street, the fossil fuel companies, Big Pharma, et cetera, et cetera. Trust me, the Democratic Party, the shock troops, is not the FBI or the IRS. Oh, God. I don't know how people take this shit seriously, but I mean, you're talking tens of millions of people believe this shit, hook, line, and sinker. And this all has real life consequences. Colin, if we could go to the article from Reuters, hold on. FBI and DHS warn U.S. law enforcement of threats after Trump search. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security have warned law enforcement agencies of an increase in threats following a search of former President Donald Trump's home last week. DHS confirmed to Reuters it had sent a bulletin on Friday on the threats, but declined to share it. CNN, NBC, and CBS have reported on the contents of the bulletin. Quote, the FBI and DHS have observed an increase in threats to federal law enforcement and, to a lesser extent, other law enforcement and government officials following the FBI's recent execution of a search warrant in Palm Beach, Florida. Among concerns cited in the memo was, quote, a threat to place a so-called dirty bomb in front of FBI headquarters and issuing general calls for civil war and armed rebellion, CBS reported. U.S. agencies have identified, quote, multiple articulated threats and calls for the targeted killing of judicial, law enforcement, and government officials associated with the Palm Beach search, including the federal judge who approved the Palm Beach search warrant. Most threats are occurring online, the bulletin said, according to reports. This shit is serious, folks. Of course, there's always been cranks on the internet, extremists, violent conspiracy theorists, ranting about the Jews and black people and brown people and, calling for civil war. but that's kind of like generally a somewhat small corner of the internet. This has been exploding just in a week because of this right-wing hysteria and meltdown over, tyranny, and it's the end of the republic, and we're under attack, and the clips I just showed you. Look over your shoulder. What do you think is going to happen in a country with more guns than people and crazy people? Colin, if we could show this tweet. The death threats from MAGA world are flooding our office. I'll wait till you could get that up. This is from Congressman Eric Stilwell. Not exactly a big fan of his, but it is what it is. It's an important tweet because it shows you all these politicians are getting mass threats too. It's under the Charlie Kirk, the Charlie Kirk thing in the live stream. I threw a lot at Colin, so sorry. The death threats from MAGA world are flooding. The death threats from MAGA world are flooding our office. This one made to a college intern who was working our phones. There's a straight line from the Trump-McCarthy rhetoric to these violent calls. Why won't they say stop? People are going to get killed. Hello, I just received a threatening phone call. The man's name is redacted. He is a frequent caller. He mentioned he was reported to Capitol Police before. His phone numbers are blank blank, but he usually calls through a switchboard. He stated that in 80 days, he's going to kick Congressman Stilwell's door down and have federal agents put a gun to his head as they raid his house due to the congressman's connections with China. He stated that as an American, he has control over the FBI, the CIA, and other federal agencies and can tell them what to do. He kept reiterating the 80 days and stated that Trump supporters are also going to come and kick the congressman's door down as well. So that's just one. That's just one. And by the way, before we went live, if we could show this, Colin, just in, prosecutors charged a Pennsylvania man with multiple online threats against the FBI for posting violent messages on Gab, which is another right-wing sewer, in the days after agents searched Mar-a-Lago. Quote, I sincerely believe that if you work for the FBI, then you deserve to die. I am going to fucking slaughter you. Let me repeat. Oh, let me just read the whole thing to you, actually. Oh, hold on. Hey, asshole, why don't you send them my threats so that they'd at least have something credible to show on Fox News? Just scrub my timeline for the posts you didn't delete after you threatened to ban me. I sincerely believe that if you work for the FBI, then you deserve to die. Come and get me, you piece of shit feds. I can't wait to watch you bleed out, you pedophile scumbags. Every single one of you deserves a painful death. Come and get me, you piece of shit feds. I'm going to fucking slaughter you. There's a difference, folks. There is a very, very stark difference between criticizing the military-industrial complex, criticizing the fact that we basically live in the United Corporations of America. We have an economy that's built on war. Most of those wars are conjured out of thin air with bullshit premises and straight-up lies. Vietnam, Bush and Cheney's Iraq, the boondoggle in Afghanistan for 20 years, us helping Saudi Arabia commit genocide on the people of Yemen. I could go on and on and on. We could also call to abolish the FBI, throw in the CIA while we're at it, and point out that they are rogue agencies. And frankly, if you ask me about both, terrorist organizations. Okay? But the reality is they currently exist. And I, for one, as a journalist and as an American, if a former president committed crimes, I want that former president held accountable. That doesn't mean it's okay that Hillary Clinton got off, that Epstein killed himself and got off. None of the bankers went to jail. But just because other people have not been held accountable doesn't mean we say, well, Trump should get a pass. FBI equals bad. So forget what Trump might have done. Trump is as corrupt and criminal and dangerous as they come. But the fact of the matter is, all of this concerted, millions of dollars a day in right-wing public relations and spin, trying to distract away from why did Trump take this shit to his fucking little compound down in Florida? What did he take? Why did he have it? Why didn't he give it back? Why did he lie and say they gave it back? Instead of all that, their choice is to incite already unstable, crazy people. And it's going to lead to more and more violence. Over the weekend at 4 a.m., a man drove through the Capitol Hill barricade. He got out of his car and started shooting indiscriminately. His car lit on fire before he shot himself. I don't know if that was related to the Trump raid. I don't know, but he drove into the Capitol barricade. They just attacked, a man just attacked the FBI office in Cincinnati. What makes you think they're not going to start attacking politicians' offices, politicians' homes? And I'm someone who covers politicians critically every day, but you attack them with ideas. You attack them with journalism. You attack them with protests. You attack them with economic boycotts. You attack them with organizing. You don't attack them with violence. We don't attack them with violence, because that will lead to a civil war. And I'm telling you, it's Monday, 6 o'clock Eastern. I do not be surprised if you hear of some attempted attacks this week. And just thinking the FBI is bad, that's great. We could think the FBI is bad. We could think the CIA is bad. We could think Biden's corrupt. He is. The Democrats are corrupt. They are. But when you start ignoring the growing right-wing extremism in this country, the growing violent conspiracy movement in this country, and put out straw mans like FBI bad, CIA bad, so let's ignore that they're calling for a civil war all over the place, that they're attacking the FBI office, that people are driving into barricades, that people in Pennsylvania are threatening to slaughter the FBI, that people are sending death threats to interns. This is a threat. And by the way, what makes you think that this isn't going to be the next mass shooting at a concert you go to this summer, at a sporting event, at the mall, walking your dog? Who the fuck knows? I'm not trying to give you fear porn here or scaremonger you, but what makes you think these unstable people aren't just going to attack innocent people? This is America, the United Guns of America, the United Corporations of America. Good point, Paul. Good point. Paul says nobody cares about the threat because it comes from white men. All right, before we take calls, I'm sorry, but I hope nobody is on an empty stomach, because this might make you a little nauseous. I don't make a habit of watching Morning Joe, but I saw a clip this morning that really was first-class gaslighting. It's like state TV for Biden. Let's take a look at Morning Joe slobbering over Joe Biden's historic, amazing record as president.
Never sees the public stage the way Trump does. He will never galvanize mobs, inspire frenzied loyalty, or encourage his supporters to embrace and defend lies. That happens to be why Biden was elected. And Joe, I do think that a lot of folks will say easy for her to say, blah, blah, blah. But he has been underestimated every step of the way in his career. And, here we go again many times.
Always underestimated, always the butt of jokes throughout his entire political career. Always. And even when he was vice president of the United States, everybody mocked and ridiculed him after Iowa and New Hampshire. Again, just like Ronald Reagan, one of Reagan's most powerful, one of his most powerful weapons was being underestimated by opponents from the beginning to the end. But look at this. Joe Biden, big wins. The Inflation Reduction Act, which, of course, there is a debate right now with CBO whether it actually reduces inflation or not. It does a lot of things, but some people taking exception to the actual title. But it does lower the cost of drugs. It does lower the price of insulin, at least for people on Medicare. It does many other things. Also, the CHIPS Act to make us more competitive with China. That's a good thing, even though Republicans whipped against it and tried to defeat it. You also have first bipartisan gun legislation in 20, 30 years. You have the killing of the al-Qaeda leader, who really was the driving force from bin Laden forward. And then, gas prices are plummeting, but I'm always skeptical of placing too much credit right in president's hands. We have a massive economy. But if Republicans are talking about how horrible things are in the economy and blaming Joe Biden, Democrats can talk about plummeting gas prices, massive job numbers, more jobs now than we had before COVID, low unemployment, 3.5%. And then, Mika, you look at what's been happening with a VA healthcare bill. You can come to us. Thank you for the billboard here.
It's quite a list.
It is. It's a massive list. But again, a lot of bipartisanship there, too, which a lot of people presumed would never happen. People were mocking Joe Biden. I will say progressive Democrats, Jonathan Lemire, kept telling Biden, hey, stop trying to do deals with him. A lot of progressive columnists said, hey, Biden, don't be stupid. Stop trying to do deals with Republicans. You can never do that. And yet you look at the China bill. You look at the VA bill, the largest expansion of VA health benefits in well over a decade. You look at the bipartisan gun control, gun safety, a public safety bill, the most significant gun safety legislation in 20 years, perhaps. You look at the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the most significant infrastructure package in quite some time. Yes, he got a lot of huge wins with his reconciliation bill when he got all 50 Democrats lined up. But again, more bipartisan legislation with this president than really any president since, well, maybe Bill Clinton.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that Biden's bet on bipartisanship didn't pay off, at least to some degree. And look, there have been some in his own party, some in his own White House who thought he was giving Republicans too much credit. He was trying to reach across the aisle too often and wasn't adjusting to the post-Trump obstructionism from the GOP. And that
before I respond, we are now live on Call-In, which is the phone call app. So we're going to be taking your calls that are going to come through right on our YouTube show through Call-In. So Colin just put the link at the top of the super chat. So you could click on that Call-In. If you haven't downloaded the Call-In app yet, do it. CALLIN and search for Status Coup. And we could take your calls. We could take your calls on Trump. We could take your calls on Biden. We could take your calls on anything, really. So definitely, you have to be on Call-In and then press the microphone to call in. But that clip was absolutely obscene. That clip was absolutely nauseating. Colin, I don't know if you could rewind to just show the graphic that they had with all of Biden's big wins, because I'd love to dissect a few of them that they claim are big wins. But that is first-rate state media, DNC TV for Biden. So let me give you some of Biden's, quote, big wins. They cite the Inflation Reduction Act. Obviously, it does nothing on inflation. That's neither here or there. The Inflation Reduction Act is being spun as a historic climate victory when it is the equivalent of your house is on fire and the fire department is showing up with a fucking super soaker. Yes, it is $370 billion of tax incentives and grants. It is not going to do nearly enough. This would have been good 15 years ago. It is not going to reverse the ice caps melting, the wildfires, the unprecedented heat waves, the drought, and I have a guest coming on tomorrow about this. Not, by the way, it doesn't lower prescription drugs in bulk like they're claiming it does, which I interviewed Michael Leidy on here on this channel, who's an expert on healthcare and has been fighting for Medicare for all. It's going to lower the price of like 15 drugs in 2026, and then another 15 in 2027, and then another 20 in 2028. We don't know which drugs they are. It's not going to address high insulin costs. So let's wait and see which drugs they're lowering prices on before we give them and Biden a victory lap, right? They cite the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which was really just privatization on steroids. The bipartisan infrastructure deal barely did a dent in our fucked up infrastructure in this country, and basically sold off public infrastructure, water, sewer, wastewater, to private companies. The old public-private partnership. So more of our water, which by the way is contaminated all over the country, i.e. Flint lives matter, is now in the hands of private corporations. What could go wrong? Because of the bipartisan infrastructure deal. By the way, it didn't replace all the lead service lines in this country that badly need to be replaced. What else did they put up, Colin? The bipartisan gun law did nothing about assault weapons, does nothing about high-capacity magazines and ammunition. Those are the two biggest causes of these mass shootings. Did not raise the age to 21 for purchasing guns. It skimmed around the edges and is not going to do much to avoid the next mass shooting, which might be going on as I'm live. Who knows? Killed the Al-Qaeda leader. Great. That's good. Gas prices plummeting. Nothing to do with Biden, but Biden sure as hell could have made gas prices go lower if he would have said to the oil companies, oh, you want to charge $5 a gallon? You want to charge $6 a gallon out west? You want to charge close to $7 a gallon out west? Here's what we're going to do. We're pulling your subsidies that you get every year. The federal government gives the fossil fuckers $15 billion a year. $15 billion a year in free money. He could have said that. We're pulling your money. They would have lowered prices lickety-split. This is what JFK did with the steel companies in 1962. They were price fixing. They were raising the price of steel all as one, colluding to raise the prices. And JFK said, oh, okay, well, we'll pull the submarine contracts away from you. We'll give it to steel companies that aren't jacking up their rates. And guess what happened? U.S. Steel and other steel companies folded like the cheap tent, which is the same thing that would have happened to these fossil fuckers that have been price gouging for the last 6 months. But Biden wouldn't do that. Why? Because his Wall Street donors are heavily invested in ExxonMobil, are heavily invested in Sunoco, are heavily invested in, name your BP, all of them. And he doesn't want to upset his Wall Street donors who are taking it to the bank right now with these high gas prices. That's what's going on. Let's go through a few more. Joe Biden slobbering. Oh, expansion of NATO. Terrific. Let's further poke the bear of a nuclear power. Putin. Huge job numbers. Well, if you just saw our economic reporting tour, our economic hellscape tour, you would know that these job numbers are pretty much an illusion. The majority of the jobs coming back under Biden's big wins are shitty, low-paying jobs with receding benefits. A lot of people are working 2 to 3 jobs, and most people are working non-living wage jobs in the hospitality industry and other industries. These are the huge job numbers that Morning Joe, CNN, CNBC gaslight us on. They're not good jobs. They're not union jobs. They're not jobs that you could take a vacation off of every year. They're not jobs that you could, maybe, one parent could work. How about one more? Morning Joe slobbering over low unemployment, same thing. Confirmation of Justy Ketanji Brown Jackson. Good. American Rescue Plan. Okay. They gave us a $1,200 check during a global pandemic. They gave us a $1,400 check during a global pandemic. They gave us unemployment during a global pandemic. They gave us some rental relief during a global pandemic that, shocking, went to states, and states didn't release most of it to the people. They didn't give you paid sick leave, which Biden could have done during a global pandemic. They didn't give you health care during a global pandemic. How many people are near bankruptcy if they were in the hospital for longer than a week with COVID, with these medical bills? Europe, that government did something kind of common sense. The government backstopped the payrolls. The government covered the payrolls, so there wasn't mass unemployment. The government gave health care to its citizens before COVID. This is why nothing changes, because you have on one end right-wing media that's revving up lunatics and extremists, and on the other end neoliberal corporate media that's literally gaslighting the masses, including baby boomers, who are the most consistent voters, to basically accept corruption, to be hoodwinked into thinking things are great, to be hoodwinked into thinking, oh, the economy's roaring again. Jobs are coming back. Everything's wonderful. Oh, more homeless encampments? We're not going to talk about that. Exploding homelessness? We don't need to cover that. People being evicted left and right? We don't need to cover that. Gentrification, i.e. economic terrorism? We don't need to talk about that. Rent going up 20 to 40%? We don't need to talk about that. Everything's wonderful. Look at Biden's big wins. Absolutely fucking pathetic. And I watch it so you don't have to. All right, let's take our first caller. We got 520 people still watching. If you want to call in, get on call in right now. The link is right at the top of our super chat. Get on call in right now, and you could call in, and it will be piped into our YouTube channel. Chris, you're up. You there, Chris? I can't hear you, Chris. Huh. I can't hear him. Hold on. Are you there, Chris? Let me try Shell.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, hey.
How are you?
So Jordan. I'm good. I don't hear very many women for some reason. So I wanted to, this is the very first time I've ever called in to any of the progressive channels that I listen to, leftist channels I listen to. So thank you.
Sure.
So I just wanted to let you know I'm one of the enlightened boomer old hippies that completely supports everything that you do, and you virtually read my mind every time you go off on one of your excellent rants.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to say that. And the other thing I just wanted to point out when you were talking about, what's his name on CNN with the crazy Biden.
Oh, Joe Scarborough on MSNBC.
Joe Scarborough, right. And wasn't it Jon Stewart who had more to do with why that burn bill passed for veterans?
Oh, single-handedly. It was Jon Stewart. First of all, the media would have never even covered it if not for a celebrity kicking and screaming. And yeah, Jon Stewart, I would say, but I mean, obviously there were activists involved in addition to Jon Stewart, but Biden had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, so along those lines, I keep, every time I hear him, I think, run, John, run. What would you think of something like that? Jon Stewart actually running for president, even though he said he wouldn't. Maybe he could be persuaded.
I would be open to Jon Stewart because I think Jon Stewart is appealing to everybody because he's not really like a bleeding heart, like progressive per se. Definitely on the left, I would say. But I think he's known for kind of like exposing the bullshit on both ends. So I think he could really cut across. I mean, there will definitely be some diehard right wingers that don't like him, but I think for a celebrity, he kind of has that like everyman thing to him. When he's out there with the firefighters or with the 9/11 first responders, I mean, in a weird way, very, not the same because he's not an old, curmudgeon. There's kind of Bernie vibes I get. So I don't know if he'd ever want to do it, but I mean, compared to the alternatives we have now, which would be Biden running again, God forbid Kamala Harris, God forbid Pete. I certainly would prefer to cover a Jon Stewart campaign than any of those neoliberal hacks.
Yeah, so let's get it together and pressure them. How about that?
Yeah. And by the way, I always make it clear when I refer to the baby boomers that are fucking up this country that it's not all of them, because there's great people like you who get it and don't accept corruption.
I know, and I really get tired of hearing that, because really there are more of us than you think. There are, in fact, millions of us who didn't turn our backs when we were out there marching to end the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was quite the activist when I was younger, and nothing has ever changed for me, nothing. And, of course, the first time I heard Bernie, it was like the light bulb went off, like, I can't believe I'm hearing this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do want to just say to everyone, please do not judge boomers so harshly, because there's plenty of Gen Xers. And by the way, I worked with nothing but Zoomers and millennials, and there are plenty of them that are they don't care about this stuff at all.
Right.
So let's not generalize and put us all in the same category, okay? And
I'll try my best. I'll try my best.
Please. I mean, I listened to Sagar, however you pronounce his name, and he's always going the boomers,
I'd say I talk about boomers mostly because, for better or worse, they are who decide elections. They are the most consistent voter. They are particularly on the presidential level, but also midterms, this and that. And unfortunately, the majority of them tend to vote on both sides, tend to vote for the more establishment candidate, tend to have the mindset that, that they've kind of become complacent to the fact that our politicians are bought off. I mean, I won't name names, but I have a boomer in my life who just said, that's politics. They're corrupt. It is what it is. And I do
too. I've got those people in my life as well. I get it.
But
there are very few people who think like I do that I know anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that there are millions of us out there besides my friends and maybe people
Right.
They are out there. So come out and call in, talk to Jordan, please.
I'd like to ask you a question, Shell. I don't know if you've noticed. But on the left these days, there's a lot of people that, maybe younger people that kind of rode the Bernie wave for the last few years, 2 campaigns, that when things kind of went to hell, Bernie drops out, supports Biden, they kind of threw up their hands and said, burning down the system hasn't come quick enough. I'm taking my ball and going home. And I understand their anger. I understand their disappointment. I understand a lot of their cynicism. But I wonder, for you said you've been doing this since Vietnam. How do you stay active? How do you stay mentally? Because it's very easy to get to the point where you just say, fuck it, nothing's ever going to change. I'm not going to pay attention anymore.
Yeah, and no, by the way, my life is just fine. I just care about humanity. I care about my grandchildren. I care about my son and his wife and my brother and his children. I basically care about humanity. And we can't give up. We can't stop. So
absolutely.
Anyone who says they don't want to be involved in politics, everything is politics. We have to be.
I agree.
So that's the way I think. I don't see any alternative. And I just, I listen regularly. Most of the people I listen to are millennial podcasters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's who I think is the future. You guys are it. And just know that you have people out there supporting you, that we are, we're not going to stop. We are not going to stop.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
You're very welcome.
All right. Thanks, Shell. Chris, I hope I could hear you this time. You're up.
Hello?
Hey there.
Hey, there you are. I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Yeah, so I was going to speak a little bit about other things, but I would like to actually continue Shell's point. I feel like baby boomers, I think we all would like to forget that a lot of the stereotypes for baby boomers were hippies and all of this. Baby boomers were also the ones throwing rocks at Ruby Ridges when she was walking to school.
True.
And I think we forget that poor people and activists tend to get jailed or murdered young. So eventually, millennials like my age may end up being the boomers.
Yeah.
Also, but I do notice a lot more progressive in millennials and zoomers. I also notice a lot with like the zoomers, especially like, the around coming of age, like 19, 20, some people I know, they have basically just accepted full-on doomerism. I see it posted all the time, I'm going to try and get the bag or make all my side hustle. And they just don't see a future. So they're just trying to get mine now. Like, well, the boomers got theirs, but we're going to get ours too. And we don't care. Live fast, die young, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a generational divide, and a lot of that. And I feel like it's a lot of blaming on, the young people making fun of boomers. But I'm old enough to where I remember for about 30 years, boomers were the ones who were calling millennials lazy. We love participation trophies. First off, I didn't care for participation trophies. My boomer parents were the ones who gave them to me. And I feel like it's really coming back for we finally just speaking up a little bit, and they're mad about that. And also, boomers I've talked to in my life, my family, they are just super comfortable. They had a good economy, and it just feels really betrayed. And I feel like that's a big part of the generational divide, is that the younger generation, especially millennials and zoomers, we feel betrayed by older generations who had it better than us. And especially the housing situation. By God, I've never heard anyone more angry about in my age or younger about anything but housing. So,
yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's also an element of, I think a lot of baby boomers, not all of them, but there's a lot of them that just don't have a problem with special interests and don't have a problem with money in politics. And, that's just something that doesn't really affect them. Like you said, they got theirs. Whereas the younger generation is a lot smarter to it, a lot more in the know. I think Bernie's campaign kind of made people a lot more informed about how the system works.
Also, we didn't have McCarthyism installed on us.
Right. And I would also say that, it's not just, it's definitely there's a divide among Black voters too. I mean, older voters and younger voters. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a gap. And I would say to the baby boomers, including in my life, because I actually went up to Massachusetts yesterday to see some family I don't regularly see, and had some spirited debates with some older ones. I said to them, like, some of them, they're not like climate deniers, but like they think it's a little, little more hysteria than, the world's not going to end. And I said to them,
well, it's not going to end in their lifetime. That's the thing. I've talked to, even, my parents, they're like, well,
right.
I said, like, don't you have fears of climate change? And one of them just said as one time, as a half joke, well, I'll be dead by then, so it's your problem. And that's what I hear a lot of and that's a lot of her frustration with their geriatric class with, Senate Majority Leader. Well, in 2018, the House Speaker, the Senate Majority Leader and the President were all over 70 years old.
Right.
And they're not going to be around to see climate change have the worst effects. And I've just seen it all the time. And, I see people, this is anecdotal, but I'm on Reddit and Twitter and see people posting how, well, my parents said they don't care, or my parents are blowing their money, say we're going to enjoy ourselves, you're not getting an inheritance, which I've seen actually a shocking amount of times in the past couple months, which is really sad. And anyway, I just want to say shout out to all the progressive boomers, and as much as they don't like a generational divide, it's happening. And a lot of it, I want to say there's some blame on the younger generations for not taking into consideration progressive boomers. But as for older millennials and mid-range millennials, we really especially feel all the hate we got for being kids our age, and you're sensitive. We're really feeling like fighting back. Anyway, just wanted to speak a little bit to that on the millennial aspect of that. But like I said, thank you, Shell. Progressive boomers are my favorite. You never give up. I'll pass on the next person.
Thanks, Chris. James, you're up.
Jordan.
Hey there.
Hey, Jordan. This is James. I'm from South Carolina.
Hey there.
And I'm also a millennial. And you can tell by my accent that I'm Southern.
I hear it, and I like it.
Yeah. I live right in MAGA country in the middle of nowhere. And it's absolutely ridiculous that the fact that one who we cannot name is hoodwinking the people that I live around. They live in poverty. They're poorly educated, and they're being lied to by corporations that don't even care for their self-interest. Not just that, it's hard to put food on the table, and not just that, it just the people who control this state has no best interest for the people. They're out for themselves.
Oh yeah, on both sides.
Yes, it's very conservative around here, but my generation, the millennials, are a lot more open to things than they used to be in past generations. And my generation grew up after the post-segregated South, so we have more contact with other minorities than other previous generations. I kind of feel like the older generation's dying out, and a newer movement within the Southern culture is actually growing. And I want more progression in the South.
I agree. And it's one of the main things that's been kind of depressing for me the last few years traveling. It's just particularly when I go to Republican areas. I mean, the Democratic Party is corrupt too, so this isn't advocating for Democrats. But when I've gone to South Carolina, North Dakota, Alabama, I've been to a lot of southern states, and more conservative states out west, and just to see the poverty, but then to see Republicans winning elections by 15, 20 points on bullshit issues like guns, God, and it's just people continue to vote against their own interest. I think what you said is very true as far as education. I mean, no disrespect, but the South has some of the poor, the worst school districts in America. I know Florida is really bad. I know, Southerners don't consider Florida real South, but you get my point. Mississippi, Alabama, and so if you don't have a great education and all you watch is Fox News and other right wing, it's very easy to buy into the culture wars and, also get caught up in the distractions of culture war, and the enemy is the Muslims and the Mexicans and then the transgender, and, when really the enemy is your local city council fucking you, your mayor fucking you, your governor fucking you. I won't even get into the churches. That's another scam.
Oh yeah, I grew up Southern Baptist, and they do act like a political entity. I personally do not care if someone's Christian I grew up Christian. But the thing is, they brainwash you if you don't agree with them. They said in their tribalism that they force you to believe. And that's not how society's supposed to work.
Right. Exactly.
But there is people that are progressive in the South. Don't think there's none of us around here. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm just as much of a country boy as anybody. You know, I do hunt, but I don't own guns. And I mean, I own primitive weapons for, you know, survival because I love eating deer meat. That's the culture around here, you know. So I just think that there needs to be common sense.
Yeah.
To live, you know. I mean, it's hard to get social welfare, and you know who's really the poorest around here is some of the African American people, and it's really sad, honestly. And there's a drug problem. There's a lot of people on methamphetamines and heroin, and it's just I don't want to live in a society like that.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah, but keep doing. I just found you today, and please keep up the good work, and I will keep listening.
Great. Subscribe to the channel. Appreciate it.
You too. Take care, Jordan.
You too. Ariana. Ariana's up next.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, I wasn't sure what to say for a while, but then I noticed that James said that he doesn't own any guns, and I'm really just trying to wrap my head around that.
Can you talk a little louder? It's hard to hear you.
Oh, sorry. Hi. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. I am sick, by the way. I have COVID, so.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fine. But yeah, what I was saying is that I noticed that James said he doesn't own any guns, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I know that there's progressive Southerners, and that's always dope to see. I'm really happy to hear everything that James said. But I just want to understand, you know, his view on guns, or, you know, someone similar to him. You know.
You're a Southerner too?
I am not. I grew up in Ohio, and then I moved to Florida.
The free state of Florida. I went to college down in Tampa.
I went to college at UNF in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be exhausting living there now.
It was exhausting.
Oh, you got out of there?
I mean, there was there was so much going on, and like the racism was just like in the air. Like, it was palpable. And you just like see it everywhere. You know, it was insane to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you living now?
I'm in Northern California.
Ah, that's where Colin, my producer, is from.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Very nice. And well, how is it living there compared to Florida and Ohio?
Oh, it's way, way better. Like, okay, yeah, things are expensive, but the wages are higher, and with the whole housing thing, like that can be arranged. You know, like it's just like it's easier to work with. You know, in Florida and Ohio, even it's like almost damn near impossible. Especially, you know, if you like grew up in Ohio, right? You know, Florida, there's plenty of opportunity in Florida for sure, but it's, you know, it's still just a messy spiral. You know?
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I hope you feel better.
Thanks. Hi.
All right. Schnart, you're up. Sharf.
Hey, what's up?
Hey there.
I just want to make a couple points. So I always look at the United States and the left as having a turning point. And I think that turning point is somewhere between 1968 and 1972. So one of the things that I think we don't do enough of is actually we don't blame the generation before the baby boomers. And they're known as the silent generation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what a lot of the blame has to go with them as opposed to the boomers. Because I think by the time you get around to 1972, you have a left that's defanged, neutered, broken arm, tossed to the side, and then you have Ronald Reagan. So that's one thing that we should keep in mind is that, while they may not be completely to blame, there's a certain segment of boomers that are still antithetical to any kind of progress. And I think one of the reasons why is because they're the ones that own private property. They have actual wealth that they can hold up and say, hey, listen, American capitalism gave me this. And I think that's a distinction that really comes out when you compare someone who was born in the 80s versus someone who was born before that, because you start seeing this progression into not doing as well as the generation beforehand.
Right.
And I think it's hard for them to grasp. And it doesn't, I was looking at a study that came out that was talking about how polarization is really due to the media. And the media is really kind of lending itself to a world where people see things in a very, very extreme way, i.e. Fox News. Really, it's Fox that does it. So, and you have a lot of these boomers, a lot of the older generation that plug into that. So couple that with the narrative that they probably did better than their kids, Fox News, and then just in general, kind of an older way of looking at the world with the Cold War, racism, everything else. I think it's hard to communicate with some of these older people because there's no getting through to them. And I think it becomes easy to blame them. But we have to think about the American left. I mean, there was a potent labor movement. There were lots and lots of left-wing movements that somehow became co-opted and destroyed. So we can't completely blame them. But we can say that these people didn't do their part in giving us a better world or a better country or a better political system, especially any of the assholes who voted for Ronald Reagan. And that's really it. I don't want to be crude and horrible to these people, but at the same time, I keep thinking why would you in your right mind vote for Ronald Reagan?
Right. Right. Well, to me, I don't particularly look at it. I don't really look at it much in terms of blame the baby boomers or the silent generation. I look at it more like just as fact, by the data, they are the reason we continue to get neoliberal establishment candidates elected. I mean, if you look even at the close elections that progressives have lost, it's a mix of it's almost every time. I mean, just by proportion, the 65 and older vote, even the 50 and older vote. Those are the biggest people. That's who turns out the most. You have depressed turnout among young people. So that's why I say, and this is why I said, I mean, I don't know how long you've been watching Status Coup, but when I covered the Bernie 2020 campaign, the first thing I said when he announced again is Bernie is not going to win. He's not going to win the Democratic nomination unless he figures out a way to pick off 10% of the normie Democrat voters, the older boomer voters who voted for Hillary over him in 2016, until he finds a strategy to pick them off. And, I was right. And actually, people don't remember this, but during that campaign, towards the end, at one point before everything fell to shit for Bernie, he was actually closing the gap among older voters with Biden, which was he was getting crushed among older voters with Biden, but he was closing the gap a little bit because his campaign was just hammering Biden with TV ads, social media about Biden for a long time, trying to privatize, freeze Social Security, which was a message that was actually working with senior voters because, frankly, they care about their own self-interest. more about.
And Bernie is a senior. Like,
right.
I don't understand. You know what it is? I think what happened with that election, and I hate to dig up a dead horse and kick it around some more, but I think what happened is somewhere along the line, there was a rigged debate, and that debate was in South Carolina, right? And they filled a whole audience full of, like, you know, donor class Democrats.
Yeah.
And they attempted to skewer him with socialism and Cuba and all that good shit that they always dig up, right? But the thing that really puzzles me is when Nina Turner turned around and called Bloomberg an oligarch. Bernie went flaccid and was like, no, he's not an oligarch. I mean, by definition, he is an oligarch. Like, he is an American oligarch.
Yeah.
And he has hegemony over mayors in the United States. Like, mayors bow down to him. That's why, like, what's her name? Lightfoot and, like, the mayor in D.C., they all fell in line. They were like 1, 2, 3. And thinking to myself, like, why the fuck would they support Bloomberg? But they all fell in line. He has a very, very strong, potent presence on the mayor circuit for whatever reason. But what I don't understand is how hard is it for someone to come out and say, you know what, fuck you. Like, I don't understand why it's so hard to just say fuck you. No, you guys suck. You've been screwing us for years and years, and just take a very staunch stance as opposed to trying to, like, do this open tent where you bring people in. I think if he had stood his ground, I think it would have had a better impact than, you know, kind of folding and allowing the establishment to run the narrative.
Yeah, I completely listen. You know, you're preaching to the choir. People call me a Bernie bro, but I've been criticizing Bernie for 5 years. I mean, he went to a spoon fight he went to a knife fight holding a spoon, politically speaking. And yeah, I mean, on one end, I admire the whole, you know, idea that he wanted to run a positive campaign on the issues. But, you know, when you're running against, you know, a well-organized political mafia, which is the Democratic Party, I mean, you have to call them corrupt. You have to explain to the viewers. You have to explain to the voters and boomers. You need to explain to them why we're the wealthiest country on earth, but the most unequal country on earth. And you have to explain.
Have you actually gotten through to, like, but is there any hope in actually getting through to that population, the Fox News boomer crowd?
Some leftists think so, and, you know, they, in my view, run cover for the right wing, according to them, to try and reach the right wing. I think you could listen. When I was on the road, you'd be surprised how many Republicans at rallies that I interviewed said that their second, other than Trump, was Bernie. Not that they agreed with him on everything, but they agreed with that anti-establishment message. They agreed with him on trade. They thought he was authentic and he meant what he said. I mean, sure, there's some that were just like, oh, socialist. But there was a lot that liked Bernie. I mean, Bernie, Bernie's campaign did a bad job of this too. Like, he actually did well with more conservative voters in Vermont every time he won re-election. So I do think there's a way of reaching some of them. Some of them are too far gone. A lot of these right-wing viewers, they don't, even if they're poor, they only care about culture issues because they've been hoodwinked by the culture wars. But I do think there's a way. I do think there's a way to reach some of those right-wing viewers. But I think it's just important, honestly, just as important as it is, you know, to convince your Republican uncle at Thanksgiving. I think it's just as important trying to reach your neoliberal auntie or grandma, because that's why progressives keep losing these close races. Because there's more older baby boomers coming out. And again, I'm not trying to blame baby boomers for everything, because there's a lot of older people that watch me that are progressive and awesome. But at the end of the day, if you look at the data, election after election, 65 and up, they are the most reliant voting group. They are who came out for Biden in droves in the primaries. And the young people, we should also talk to the young people. Because, I mean, we're the ones getting fucked, but there's not an 18 to 30-year-old in America that should not be. There's no reason for every 18 to 30-year-old in America to be coming out and voting. And I'm not saying electoral politics is the entire solution, but there's not one fucking reason every college student should be voting. Every young person should be voting, because we can win some of these closer races. And, Bernie cleaned up among young people, but there's just more older people than vote than younger people. That's the sad truth. So I got to
I
take.
know this has no place at all in this conversation, but I feel like we should say, okay, Boomer.
Definitely. I got to take the next caller. Thanks for calling. Humorous, you're up. You just got to unmute yourself. Do you see the mute, that little microphone button next to your image? You just have to press unmute. Are you able to unmute, Humorous? Colin, if you could put in the chat for Humorous how you unmute, he might be a little tech challenge. There you are. There you are.
No, I'm sorry.
I hear you. I hear you.
What's up, bro?
How you doing?
It took me a while to figure out that this station actually has you live when the other one you got to turn off. Otherwise, you're listening to four people talk.
Yep. We just started doing these calls that now could go through.
I'm an old timer, dude. I suck with all this modern technology.
I'm a young timer, and I suck with modern technology, so I'm with you.
Well, all I know is that we use 98% of it wrong.
Very true. How's the how's the free state of Florida treating you?
Oh, you mean the country of Florida?
Yeah.
There's no state of Florida. There's the country of Florida. We have a really shitty dictator running it right now.
Well, I think that really shitty dictator is in one breath crying because the right wing has rallied around the fearless leader, Donald, but in the other breath crying tears of joy, thinking they might actually prosecute him. And it opens up
That's like scary shit, man. I'm telling you, I'm serious as a heart attack. That dude back in 2014, when he started mumbling about that, I started donating money to any progressive I could find. You just came later.
Right.
If I had found you way back when, oh my God, bro, you'd be much farther ahead than what you are now. Back then, I actually had money to donate.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting, it's YouTube and all these fucking tech platforms that through their algorithms like to, stuff your homepage with CNN and all these corporate outlets. But people have a hard time finding actual progressive news because for most people, Status Coup, I mean, they've never seen it on their feed. They might have come. Go ahead.
I agree with you, bro. Seriously. And I actually had stock in YouTube. I tried to use that influence to impress upon them that this kind of news was important. And they said, no, it's not. And I was like, but yes, it actually is. The corporate media is not telling people what actually needs to be said. And they shut me down on that. So I pulled all my stock out and now I donate it to you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, YouTube is, in my view, I mean, just a puppet for Google. Google owns it. And Google, unfortunately, runs the world. So You know, when I was
actually BlackRock runs the world.
well,
BlackRock and Vanguard.
that's true too. But listen, when I was at the Young Turks in 2016 and 2017, this was before YouTube changed its algorithm to basically stuff people's feeds with CNN and the Washington Post and all these corporate outlets. I grew a channel to 140,000 subscribers in less than a year, doing exactly what I'm doing now. And, you know, anybody could rise or sink on their own. The YouTube wasn't favoring some channels and burying others. And then they changed their algorithm in 2017 and 2018. And since then, I do the same exact thing, probably more than I was doing at the Young Turks. And I can't get people to see it because YouTube only wants to recommend, you know, sensational bullshit to people. They only want to recommend, you know, mainstream narratives. If you're critical of capitalism, if you're critical of war, they don't. If you do real on the ground reporting, they don't want anybody to see that shit. And most importantly, for an outlet that claims there's such a problem with right-wing extremism, they sure love stuffing people's feeds with right-wing lunatics and charlatans. I mean, those are the people
because they believe in the clownery that of the human psyche that Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey believed in, and also like Houdini.
Yep,
they believed in that. Like if you put on that show, no matter what you do or say, they'll believe that shit to be true.
Right. Absolutely. And also YouTube's whole business model, it's even more than how many views they get is how long they could keep people on the platform. Because the longer average time people watch, the more you could charge advertisers. So who's on YouTube all day? The right wingers. They watch one video and then go to another video and another video, and before you know it, they're, you know, in their underwear for 4 hours. So
it's true, sad, bro. It's true, sad,
yep.
Man. And you know, I take a lot of responsibility. I take it for my generation. Maybe they don't want to admit that shit, and I think that you're part of it. Because like I'm like at the verge, okay, of what your generation, like your age group and lower, and like my mother's. So basically, the fall of America for the second time started in my grandfather's time. But they had already acquired a great deal of America because of Roosevelt and shit. And I want to explain to some of your younger viewers, and I know that there's probably only 36 watching now because people do get bored.
Actually, you got 300. You got
an excellent show. Man.
You got 360 people watching right now on YouTube and listening to you.
Oh, really? That's cool. Well, for all your younger viewers, let me explain why I can personally donate bucket loads of money to this channel. It's because of my parents and my age, because even I was able to invest in things that were growing at the time when I was like 18 and 20. Okay. But my parents, my mother didn't even have to work until I was 8 years old. That was the decline, the beginning of the decline of America. That is when the unions stopped being great unions. That's when the oligarchs started taking back and buying the government again. Roosevelt took that away from them. So when Jordan tells you the United Corporations of America are what's running it, they're actually owning you. You are all slaves. We are all slaves. The only reason you don't understand that fact is because you cannot see the bars and the chains that bind you.
I'm exactly with you. And part of why you can't see it is you have a you're talking at this point, the entire media system, a multi-trillion-dollar propaganda machine that exists.
You got that right, and nobody understands that. Yep. And it's not just Fox. It's not just MSNBC. There is a crap load of them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by the way, to be clear. I mean, I just did it, for example, on this show, we showed, Joe Scarborough and his wife slobbering over Joe Biden about his historic economy. I just did in 8 days with Colin. I mean, we went to 3 states. We drove 1,500 miles. We don't have the resources that Morning Joe has. And
well, I hope I helped.
Oh, you did. You did. Your donations were very much appreciated and helped a lot. But I mean, all you got to do is talk to a few people. You will quickly learn it's a fucking economic disaster zone. It's a Hunger Games. And the media
down here in the country of Florida, the fascist country of Florida, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that considered themselves Republicans that are now understanding that there is no Republican Party. There's the GOP.
Right.
And what was the original Republican Party, which is now called the Democratic Party.
You got that right.
See, no one understands their actual history because they don't teach it in schools anymore.
Right.
Hey, young folk out there, let me tell you something. This man ain't lying to you, okay? I lived through this shit. I'm at least 22 years older than this man. I'll guarantee it, and I don't even know how old he is. That's how old I am.
I'm about to turn the young age of 36.
Oh, my God. I'm 30 years older than you. Holy shit. Anyway, I'm telling you, it's like, Jordan, right here. In this neighborhood, these people are beginning to awake to the fact that, wow, I don't think it was a good idea to vote for any of those people in the last 7 years.
Oh, they're just learning? It's interesting.
Yeah, and now they're afraid. They're like, how do we stop Trump from becoming president again?
Right.
These are like down hardcore, like crazy people, bro.
And I'm actually seeing it on the other end because I just covered in Philadelphia. You emailed me about it. An apartment complex, low income black folks. They're getting evicted, and I interviewed a couple of them. And I asked, what does this say? You got a city. Your mayor's a Democrat. The city council's Democrats. This is all a Democratic city. And they're letting, a real estate developer kick you to the curb so that they can sell the place and, make a lot of money. You're going to be homeless. And they said, two of them said, I helped elect most of these people. I knocked on doors for them. And they're just realizing now, after doing a whole lot and having faith in the Democratic Party, that they're getting screwed by the Democratic Party. And of course, the Republicans too.
Well, like I said, the Democratic Party is a label. It's actually the original Republican Party, which kind of accepted both sides a long time ago. It was when they started getting bought out by people like Vanderbilt and Rockefeller that Roosevelt showed the hell up, and he got shoved into a position of real suck ass, just like Biden. But he was a good administrator. He took on that war. He dealt with all that depression, and he fixed everything, and he made the damn oligarchs pay for it. And that's how it worked. Then he supported unions. He didn't hide in some damn closet somewhere. He actually supported the damn things. My mother was alive and knew it.
Right. By the way,
I learned a lot of crap from my parents, man, and they knew that this was the beginning of the end in their lifetime. They tried really hard to instill that fact into me that if we do not stop what's going on right this second in this beautiful way that we all live on planet Earth right now, it's going to change, and it's going to change fast, and it's going to get out of control where everyone will be hateful to each other.
Absolutely.
They said that 67 years ago.
Here's an update to the audience on Trump claiming that the FBI stole his passports. Shocker, the FBI is not in possession of Donald Trump's passports. He made that up. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know. Has anybody... I would really, truly like to know. You all can find me through this site, but it's like, I would like to know, has Trump ever really said anything true other than the fact that what you just said tonight in, what was that, one sentence?
I'm pretty sure he was telling the truth when he said if Ivanka wasn't his daughter, he'd want to try to mess around with her. I'm pretty sure he was telling the truth because I think he's got.
Okay, well, that's two sentences then, because I think he said something in your live broadcast tonight that was also true that he said.
Oh, the Russia
I
hoax.
can't be positive of that. See, that's such an itchy subject.
Right. I mean, he was, it is true. There was no like collusion with Russia, but everything else he said is complete bullshit. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That was a sentence. Yeah, there was no collusion with him. The man ain't, first of all, he's not smart enough. I would actually believe that with DeSantis before I ever believed it with Trump.
Right.
DeSantis is about 40 times smarter than Trump.
Right.
He's also evil. He's like worse than Trump. You do not want this person to be the president of the United States. You're better off keeping him down here in his own country.
Right. Absolutely. Listen, I love you, but I got to take the next caller. What I think you and I should do is one day, I think you should come on the show live. We'll have some whiskey and talk about the good old days.
Oh, fuck, that would be fun. My good old days are older than yours, though.
True. All right. Thanks for calling, Humorous.
You have a great day, my friend. Keep up that good work. I'll do as best as I can to support your channel.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good one. Chris OG.
Hey, Jordan. First off, I'd like to publicly acknowledge all the support Humorous has given to the channel over the last few months. He's been very generous and very supportive.
Yes.
I also want to respond to another something about Google and YouTube. Make no mistake, they're just in the same ilk as the corporate media because they're a profit. They run on a profit.
Am I on? Are you talking on speaker or something? Because you're not that loud.
Let me see if I can take my earphone.
I hear you now. I hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. What I was going to say is make no mistake about Google because they're just like corporate media. They're running on a profit motive and they don't want to piss off their advertisers. So, I mean, they're really, is little distinction. The fact that they're supporting, corporate media outlets over independent should be of no big surprise because they run on the same model, profit model. The other thing I wanted to kind of say is that I have a little bit more of a nuanced opinion on voting, a little bit different than what you might think. Because when I was younger, I didn't vote. And the reason I didn't vote, because I understood that I may be voting against myself and my own best interests. Because if I'm not informed enough to follow the campaigns and follow what is really going on, okay, then I could be voting against myself. So there's no sense in voting, and there's no sense in voting as a team blue or team red fan, because what's with that? That's like the high school popularity contest for a student council, right?
Right.
So even though everybody has a right to vote, they also have a responsibility to vote informed. Okay. If not just on a personal basis, that they could be voting against their own best interest. Do it from a moral responsibility, moral perspective, that it's your responsibility. If you're exercising that right, you should do it responsibly. Okay. I do believe that everybody does have the right to vote, and they should vote if they're being responsible. Unfortunately, most of the people here can't be responsible because of the influence of corporate media and manufactured consent. You guys did it. I think it was this morning about the whole thing about electability. Over and over again, how the media just drills that into people's head to drive doubt, and that's kind of what got Biden his leg up over Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I think is good that you do is you put the facts out there. You don't tell them what to do. Okay, let them decide, and we should let people decide how they want to vote. I'm a little skeptical at the moment.
You just your audio just went a little low.
Okay, try again.
Now you're good.
I'm a little skeptical at the moment. How the media is so entrenched in our politics that it influences the outcome of our politics. And people need to start thinking for themselves, not voting culturally. Just because I'm in a red state or blue state, I'm going to, feel good so I could say I voted for the winner, right? Nobody wants to say I voted for the loser, but, to vote responsibly. I still think that, I'm a longtime supporter of Status Coup, and the secret to democracy is an informed electorate, and unfortunately, the corporate media is keeping us dumb, and independent channels like yours is what's waking us up. I don't want to use the woke term, but everybody is going to have their own journey through understanding how rigged the system is, because the system really is kind of a multi-level pyramid scheme, and and frankly, everybody is getting taken advantage of. It's the oligarchs who are really driving, the issues that we even hear about, get to vote on. I mean, the stuff on the social issues, that's distraction. That's trying to keep us distracted from actually looking at the real issues. And I had one other thing for folks to consider. On the gun issue, there are places in this country there's a whole lot of nothing out there. A lot of people think of it from their own personal area, where you live in suburbs or in the city, and guns shouldn't be necessary. But I don't see any reason for these assault weapons. If you needed it to protect yourself against wildlife, or you need it for hunting, I understand that. If that's how you make your living. But I can see no justification for the need to have an assault weapon, because just the mere effort of buying one, it says that you're buying this toy, and everybody wants to use their toy at some point, and they're looking for a reason to use it. There's no, I'd be suspect of anybody who actually even owns one, of their mental stability. And with that, I'll yield to the next caller.
Thank you, my friend. All right. I got to do a little rapid fire here because I got to go eat dinner soon. Guy, you're up.
Hey, Jordan, can you hear me?
Hey there.
Hi. I thought I would run an idea by you that maybe won't interest you as a journalistic story, but maybe some up-and-coming journalists who might want to chase it down. I volunteered for Bernie for a few weeks, door-to-door in Nevada back in 2020, before the pandemic. And one of the fellow volunteers I met was a young woman from the Bay Area, and she said she wasn't voting for Bernie, even though she was volunteering for him. And she explained why. Because she said she had been caged. Caging is a process maybe you've heard of. It's something that, Greg Palast explains pretty well in some of his books about voter suppression. But basically, it's a technique that's used. It's used a lot by the GOP, but it's actually used a whole lot by, Democrats and in blue districts, deep blue states and districts too. You send a little postcard out to people who you think might not be at the address that you're sending the postcard to. And if you don't get a response, then you strike them from the voting rolls. All right. And guess who are the people who are most likely to be struck from the voting rolls in high rent neighborhoods?
Yeah. Black people.
Yeah. So, black people, young people, students, people who volunteer for Bernie are probably statistically a whole lot more likely to get stricken from the voting rolls than your middle class, or upper middle class homeowner. All of which is to say that, at least anecdotally, I think that there's probably a lot of voter suppression going on in deep blue districts all over the country. And I don't think it's a story that gets told. I think that we hear about the boogeyman, and they're really awful. The GOP is absolutely the spawn of Satan. But I think that it may well be that this pattern and practice is just as responsible for the extremely reactionary character of the Democratic Party by and large across the country as the voter suppression that goes on in Florida is responsible for the likes of Death Santa.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Gillum.
I'd be really interested in seeing follow-up on this because I really don't hear this story about rampant. I mean, I'm speculating right now because I only have anecdotal evidence, but I suspect there really is rampant voter suppression in deep blue cities and states across the country.
I suspect you're right. I know you're right based on some of the things I've seen. And I've seen Greg Pallas's film. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it weren't like a statistical, voluminous or exhaustive demonstration of this, even just a collection of anecdotal stories like the one I told you, this young woman, she actually had been stricken from the voting rolls multiple times in the Bay Area. She lives in Pelosi's district. And she had sent postcards multiple times, and she finally got exhausted because she was going to have to move. And she knew they were going to send yet another postcard, and she wasn't going to be able to respond in time before she moved.
Right.
And so she finally threw up her hands and gave up. And she said, well, fuck it. At least I'm going to vote for the guy, even if I can't. At least I'm going to volunteer for the guy, even if I can't vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a woman who, takes her democratic participation seriously, obviously.
Well, to volunteer when you're not even going to vote for him is something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't believe that this is a one-off thing.
I think you're right. I'll look into it. I'll add it to my list.
Right on.
All right. Sure. I got to take the next person. Thanks.
Okay. Yep. Bye.
All right. James, you're up.
Hey, can you hear me, Jordan?
I can.
I have to say something that's really important when you answered my call earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly afraid of civil unrest right now. I'm afraid for the safety of the American people, and I mean all American people. We all being hoodwinked by, who, lying a lot. I'm actually afraid of my safety living here in the South. I'm honestly afraid of complete societal collapse.
You know what? I'm very careful when because I think a lot of people kind of toss out, we're close to a civil war. But I do think we really are at a tipping point, and America's a powder keg. I think Trump unleashed something that was maybe a decade ago more, quiet behind closed doors as far as, people's hate, and kind of made it acceptable to come out in the open and not hide it as much as far as wanting to, quote unquote, make America great again, which is really just code for going backwards to a time we were less diverse, less accepting. I think that he's really, and it's not just him, but what he's ushered in, along with the media and the right-wing politicians who kind of are, his yes men and, don't really push back on his insanity. I think it's really unleashed a lot of hate that leads to violence. And I agree with you. I mean, we're already seeing it. Somebody attacked the FBI in Cincinnati. They just arrested someone I reported earlier on the live stream in Pennsylvania who was threatening the FBI with slaughtering them. All these politicians are getting death threats. Their families are getting death threats. I mean, I call call out the politicians left and right, but I don't call for death threats or violence. So yeah, I don't blame you. And I've even seen it. I mean, I've seen it at Trump rallies I've covered and more right-wing events. You see kind of, it's almost like, when you look at some of these people, it's like they're hyenas, if that makes sense. Like they're chomping at the bit at a lot of what Trump and these other people are saying. And it's getting them more enraged and agitated. And so I agree with you. I mean, I unfortunately agree with you. And I think that unfortunately we probably are going to see more violence. And, the Democrats play a role here too, because they're not giving people a real alternative. When you don't give people, go ahead.
Jordan, you should look up the years of lead of Italy. That what we're going through now is the same thing what Italy went through in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with political violence. And I just don't want to see that. I don't want to live in a society where everybody's at each other's throats politically. It's unhealthy and it's toxic.
Right. I'm with you. We're in it. We're in it together, James.
I'll try my best. I'm a very reasonable person. I treat people with respect when they need to be respected. I try to listen to what people have to say, and it's kind of hard when everything is politics now. It's toxic. Everything's toxic now, and it's not good for our mental health.
Right. All right, I got to take this last caller. Thanks for calling.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, Frank, you're finishing up. Finish us up. You there, Frank? You got to unmute yourself. Going once, going twice. All right. There's a microphone button that you should see to unmute yourself. All right. Well, I don't know if he's going to figure it out. Let me read some super chats before we go. Eleanor, $10. Real journalism like Status Coup needs our help to survive. Even an occasional $2 super chat makes a difference. More is better if you're a supporter of truth. Thanks, Jordan and crew. Yes, every super chat makes a big difference. For those watching on Twitch, you could donate there. Most importantly, if you can, if it's within your means, sign up as a Status Coup member. That's statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Your membership is how we fund our on-the-ground reporting, our investigative reporting, paying freelancers. I'm actually setting up a schedule. We're going to have more fill-in hosts and more of a rotation of hosts coming up. Tina is hosting her own show weekly now. We have Kim Brown, who's hosting on Wednesdays. We'll have some other people that I'm not going to announce yet. So fund us if you can, because we don't get any funding from big banks. We don't get any funding from the fossil fuckers. We have no funding from big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex. Our funding comes from you. So if it's within your means, statuscoup.com/join. As far as I know, we're the only outlet, independent progressive outlet, that actually reports on the ground in the field on all the stories the corporate media covers up. Let me repeat. We cover what the corporate media covers up. So very important. If you can, statuscoup.com/join. You could join for $5 to $10 a month. $5 a month equals 16 cents a day. If you can't, totally understand. But if you can, try to do it. Double K, $19.99. Thank you, Double K. Humorous, $50. Holy cow. Thank you, Humorous. Appreciate it. Status Coup's journalism is worth our support. I personally have learned a great deal more about America than what's being told on corporate media. Screw the United Corporations of America. We need 100 million people in a progressive movement. Damn straight. Maybe we'll make a t-shirt, Colin. Screw the United Corporations of America. I like that. Chris, $5. Could Ivana Trump have been murdered? I question it. Trump's kids got called for January 6 hearings a week after, was found dead alone at the bottom of the stairs. Dude, that's some dark shit, Chris, even for me. You think Trump's kids had something to do with Ivana? I mean, she did fall down the stairs. it's not out of the question that she was pushed, but I don't know what the motive would be to push Ivana Trump. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Double K, another 1999. Thank you so much. Double K, another 1999. Thank you so much. Dave, $5. What worries me is that the right always tells on itself. They're accusing them of what they really want to do. Correct. And we have a spineless left in these countries that's allowing the fascists to grow and breed because they're not offering voters a different choice. They're not offering voters health care or education or actual real money to go towards climate change or paid sick leave or a real social safety net. They're offering them nothing. So if a lot of voters who are economically angry, who are economically frustrated, who are economically hopeless, if their choice is neoliberal corporate Democrats who are offering them crumbs or right wingers who are like, pounding their chest and, we're going to take the country back and sprinkle in, it's the transgender people's fault and the gay people and the Mexicans and the Muslims. Who do you think people are going to go to? They're going to get hoodwinked into going to the fascists. That's what's happening. Humorous, $5. Fascism will come to America with a smile on its face, a cross and religion in one hand, and freedom in the American flag in the other. I really couldn't say it better. Double K, 1999. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Arlene, $20. Exactly, Jordan. Attack with real journalism, not violence. I agree. Fly Chomper Fly, $2. I'm working on campaign, no effect on voter registration. I don't know what that's in reference to, but okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Colin, behind the scenes. Thank you to everybody on Call-In who listened. We're going to be doing this more regularly, taking calls through Call-In. So on Call-In, if you're on Call-In right now, make sure you subscribe to our channel that you're listening on. We got 53 people on Call-In. If you're new to Status Coup on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Click the bell next to the subscribe button for all notifications, so you'll get notifications. Another great thing you could do is sign up for our text list. That's statuscoup.com/text. That way you'll get a text message when we're live. So YouTube is not reliable to notify you when we're live. So sign up for our text message list and you'll get a text message when we are live. So that's statuscoup.com/text. Makes a big difference. It's free. Doesn't cost you any money. And everything else. We're on Twitter at Status Coup. Thank you for watching. Please consider signing up as a member. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Status Coup. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Welcome Atlay and welcome Paul signed up as members, I think, while we were live. So Atlay and Paul signed up as members. Thank you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.